Hello, my name is Allison of Blossoming Heart Counseling. I haven't posted a video in a couple weeks, and the reason for that is because I have been doing my own self-exploration work, and particularly around grief. And I thought today I would talk a little bit about how to befriend grief and how to help move grief through the body and to be the loving witness of our grief. Many of us have had experiences in our lifetime where maybe we had some attachment trauma, where maybe our parents didn't validate our feelings, or we got the message that certain emotions were good and certain emotions were bad, or maybe we experienced some form of childhood neglect or abuse, or had a relationship later in life where there were challenges, or maybe we experienced being bullied as a child or a teenager. And all of these experiences, if we don't at the time sit with our grief, can get stuck in our body and in our felt sense, and it can lead to mental health issues such as depression and anxiety. And depression and anxiety are actually the body's normal response to unmetabolized emotion. And rather than pathologizing it, I would like to suggest that if we begin to get curious about it and befriend those emotions, we can actually help them to move through our system, and we can learn to love those emotions, because we can transform them and transmute them. So let's just begin in a seated practice, a brief meditation to start. And I invite you to bring your awareness to your breath. I'm going to bring in the concept of internal family systems theory. There are some podcasts on my YouTube channel about this modality. Like yoga, internal family systems theory has the concept that there is an indwelling nature in us that can never be harmed. That is our inner light, or our soul, or our self energy with a capital S, or our inner yogi. And that from this place, we can witness what is happening internally with curiosity and compassion. Some mindfulness practices teach you not to engage with what you are witnessing, but to create distance from it. And internal family systems actually suggest that you should befriend what is coming up and get to know it as if it is a unique being or a unique part of you. And the concept in internal family systems is that we are not one dimension, that we hold many different aspects of ourselves, and those different aspects of ourselves sometimes hold burdens. And when those burdens are metabolized and released, then those parts of ourselves can step into their unique gifts and talents. So today we're just going to set the intention to notice what's present. Maybe scanning your felt sense to see if there are any emotions present, any sensations present, any thoughts present. And because the intention of today's practice is to befriend the grief, perhaps we invite the parts of ourselves in that have something to grieve. And we notice what we feel or sense in our body, our emotion body, and our mind body when we set that intention. And then perhaps we set the intention for those parts of ourselves not to flood us, but to trust that we can be with them to help it release. And we offer some appreciation for the wisdom that they hold. I'm going to suggest that throughout this practice, as you witness what is coming up for you, that you send it loving kindness, that you let it know that you are there and you'd like to help it release. And if tears are part of that release, you welcome those tears in and you cry. If vocalization is something that is needed, you allow yourself to give voice to your grief. If any of the poses I suggest are not what the body is calling for, I invite you to listen to your innate wisdom and move as your body feels it needs to move to release the grief. I appreciate the trust that you are offering me in this guided practice. It's a great honor. We're going to begin with 2 blocks. We're going to begin with a chest opener. A lot of times we hold grief in our heart chakra, and that is our indwelling nature of love. And when we have had experiences where perhaps our love was rejected or our love was not met with compassion, we can kind of get stuck energy and walls and protective mechanisms that form in the heart chakra. So we're going to place the blocks on the medium side, and we're going to lie on them. And you want the lower block to be underneath your back so that the upper part of the block is resting just below your shoulder blades. And then you want your head to be resting on the other block. And you don't want to experience any pain, so adjust the blocks if necessary, and if blocks are not comfortable, you can use a bolster or a blanket. And we're going to put our feet into butterfly pose with our feet pressed against each other and our knees out, away from one another. We're just going to hold this pose for 5 or 6 breath cycles. And we're going to focus our attention on either the sensation or the emotion or the thought that came up, offering it loving kindness, or perhaps noticing and focusing on your heart space, offering it love and kindness. And I'm going to invite in a mantra for today's practice. As you're working with your grief, I'm going to suggest a metta or loving kindness practice, where you repeat the phrases to these parts of yourself. May we be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be held in loving kindness. May we realize loving kindness as our essence. Tears are our body's natural release of grief. That when we hold in the tears, we actually stifle the grief so that it cannot flow, and it then gets stuck in the body. But if we allow the tears to flow, the grief is released and it's transmuted into joy and appreciation. We're going to go ahead and begin to come out of this pose, bringing your feet so they are on the mat and your hands and forearms beneath you, and you're going to begin to lift up and remove the block and the other block. And we're going to just do a full body stretch. And then we're going to move into banana pose. So you're going to move your right leg off to the right side, placing your left leg over your right leg, and then leaning your shoulders and arms to the right side in a C curve. And you want to try to keep both of your hips neutral on the ground. This is a great opener for the hips and the psoas as well as the heart. Another place that we hold grief is in our abdomen, especially when we have had early childhood experiences, perhaps some boundary violations. And so just be aware that sometimes emotions can come up as we begin to open these centers of the body. And again, the intention today is to be with them with loving kindness and to offer those sensations, the metta or loving kindness practice of may we be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be held in loving kindness. May we realize loving kindness as our essence. We're going to go ahead and transition to the other side. Left leg off to the left with right leg over the left. Left shoulders and left arms creating a C curve with the lower body. Again, we want to have the hips neutral on the mat. We don't want the right hip to be leaning forward. We want to balance. We'll just stay here for 5 breaths. And with any yoga practice, you can either have your eyes open or you can find a neutral place to gaze. When we allow the eyes to close, we have more awareness of what's happening internally, and that sometimes can be quite intense. So if you are feeling at all overwhelmed by having your eyes closed, I suggest that you open them so that you have dual awareness of what's happening internally at the same time as having awareness of being in a safe space. We're going to go ahead and return to center. I'm just taking a moment to adjust the hips, maybe shake them out. We're going to come into reverse tabletop. This is another wonderful chest and shoulder opener. It also can create some opening in the lower abdomen. We're going to place our hands under our shoulders and our feet on the mat. And we're going to inhale as we press down and away, pulling or lifting our pelvis up into the air. This can be quite an intense pose. You can either have your chin tucked or you can allow it to rest backwards. We're going to hold for a few breath cycles. If at any time it feels intense in this pose because emotions are coming up, you are always welcome to come out of the pose and perhaps go into child's pose. We're going to find a seated position. We've done a little bit of opening of the chest, and the heart chakra also has an opening in the back. And so we're just going to take a moment to allow in the front of the heart chakra is where we release energy and give. And the back of the heart chakra is where we receive. So it is important to also attend to that area of the body and allow an opening of reception for universal life force energy or chi or spirit or whatever you believe connects all things. So we're going to do some eagle arms. We're going to start with the right arm under the left, and we're going to inhale arms up And exhale into a cat pose. And we're going to inhale, arms up into cow. Exhale into cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. And we're going to hold it in this position for 2 breath cycles. Now on your next inhalation, come out of the pose. Perhaps take a moment to do a few shoulder circles, some neck movements. And we're going to transition to the other side. Left arm underneath, right arm up. And same cycle, we're going to inhale, cow. Exhale, cat for 3 breaths. Perhaps setting the intention to invite light into your heart. To invite love into your heart. And we're going to go ahead and hold for 2 breath cycles in the cat position. And we're going to come out of that and we're going to do another chest opener just to kind of release the shoulders. We're going to take our hands and interlace them behind our back. And we are going to move the hands, shoulders down and away and arms down and away from our body while also pushing back. And if you want to add in a slight back bend here, you can. We're now going to do a little bit of a shoulder opener. We're going to take the back of our right palm and place it against the side of our body. And we're going to pull our arm inward, which can stretch the wrist, but also stretches part of the shoulder. We'll hold for a few breath cycles. Again, remembering that if any emotion or thought or body sensation arises, we are experimenting with sending it loving kindness using the metta phrase, may we be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be held in loving kindness. And may we realize loving kindness as our essence. Go ahead and let the right side go, and we're going to transition to the left side. The back of the left palm against the side body, the right arm reaching over and pulling the left arm in across the midline. In many spiritual traditions, including yoga, the concept is that our true nature is love. But oftentimes we have experiences in our lifetime where that love perhaps was not mirrored, and we began to doubt that we were lovable. And this can very often just be in our unconscious, and we might not even have awareness that we feel unlovable or that we feel unworthy, but maybe it comes out in our actions where rather than go out with friends, we decide to stay home because we're not quite sure that we'll enjoy hanging out with them. Or maybe when we have a fight with our partner, when things get heated, we step away and isolate because we're afraid of the conflict. And these are normal human responses. But the more we begin to love the parts of ourselves that are hurt, the more they begin to believe that they too are loved, and some of those ways of engaging in the world begin to um, shift, and we begin to have a little bit more agency. We're going to go ahead and let that go. We're going to transition into down dog. And if you would like to walk your dog, please feel free to walk your dog. We'll just hold for 3 breath cycles. On your next inhale, come forward to plank. And as you exhale, chaturanga. And then we're going to pause for a moment in Sphinx. And see if you can put some pressure into your palms and your forearms, lifting your body away, while at the same time allowing your abdomen and your pelvis to kind of relax into the earth and your legs to relax into the earth. We're just going to stretch the lower abdomen and the mid-abdomen for a moment. This also is a chest opener when you have your shoulders down and back. And we're just going to breathe into these areas. And we'll hold for 5 breath cycles. So we're going to come down all the way and place into broken wing. We're going to place our right arm in kind of a W shape, and we're going to place our right cheek on the mat, and then we're going to push through our left hand so that we twist. And if you would like to have your arm up, you may, or bound behind you is also a nice opener. And we're going to transition to the other side. Left arm in a W, left cheek on the mat, pushing through the right, twisting the lower body. And we'll hold for a few breath cycles. And we're going to come out of that. We're going to come into Happy Puppy. But what I would like you to do today is we're going to have our elbows on the ground and our hands in prayer position. And the hips will be over the knees. And we're going to rest our forehead in the crutch of our arms. And if you would like to increase the intensity, you also could place your blocks down in front of you, and you could place your elbows on the blocks. And we're going to come out of that. We're going to transition to our final pose of the day. We're just going to come into a child's pose. And if you do have a bolster or a blanket or a pillow, I'm going to suggest that you grab that and that we do supported child's pose. So you place the bolster in front of you, you widen out your legs, and then you roll over and hug it. And you can either place your cheek on the mat either side, or if it's more comfortable for you to have your forward down, you may do that. And while we're in child's pose, I'm going to invite us to continue with the loving kindness mantra that we continue to repeat to ourselves. May we be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be held in loving kindness. May we realize loving kindness as our essence. I invite you to stay in child's pose as long as you feel called to do so. And if you'd like to join me in a seated position, we're going to end as we began with a brief meditation. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, arms to prayer position in front of your heart, or you could place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. I invite you to offer yourself gratitude. Gratitude for the willingness you have to self-explore and to engage in practices of self-care. It takes great courage to listen inward. It takes great courage to engage in a spiritual practice of becoming more whole, more integrated, more like your divine light. It takes great courage to look at your shadow side and accept it, to love it. Grief is just that. It is our humanness. It is normal. It is a gift. It is how we release pain that we have experienced. All of us at some time in our life will experience suffering. And if we listen, if we go into the suffering and we sit with it and we listen and we offer it love, some wisdom, some seed of transformation will surface. I honor the teacher in each of you. I honor your shadow and your light, for both are beautiful. I honor the teachers that bring this wisdom to us. And I honor the space and the energy from which this wisdom comes. the energy that connects all things and unifies all things and says that all things at their core are love. That there is a deep hope that when we begin to go inward and we begin to befriend our shadow, we step more into our love and light, and we reflect that in our actions with others. And those of us doing this work are helping the planet to heal and to shift. And the suffering of the planet can shift if we continue to do our own healing work. So I have a deep appreciation for each of you who is here today, and for all the yogis on the journey of becoming. It is an honor and a gift to be a chaperone. Let's end on an Om. Let's inhale. Thank you for joining me today. If you found today's practice helpful, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, Blossoming Heart Counseling. I'm a mental health therapist who integrates mind, body, spirit practices such as yoga. I've also studied and completed an 800-hour yoga therapy and yoga teacher training, and I integrate that into my work with clients. I appreciate you checking me out, and I wish you well on your journey of self-discovery.